Hi, I'm Troy from Geek Aloud. I recently had the opportunity to discuss my perspective about the future of gaming in an interview with my good friend Joe from Power to Be Happy. I hope you enjoy this half-hour discussion. Remember, if you like it, subscribe it, you'll never miss it.
Hey Troy, so good to be talking to you about this, man, about future of gaming. The future, man.
Thanks, Joe. Good to be here,
excited?
man. I'm excited. I love my gaming, you know that.
Yeah, and I hope you're excited about the future as well, right?
I am. I'm also excited about right now, but that's another story.
Yeah, we gotta connect those two up together. Listen, Troy, like I've been thinking about, where do we start with this? And I think that where I'm going with it is really the cliche. I'm going with the stereotype. There's this whole cliche about in our culture that like in the future of gaming, we're gonna all be like it's just gonna be plugged in straight to your brain. The game is gonna be there to a point where you won't be able to tell the difference between what's real and what's in the game. So this kind of blurring lines between games and reality, we've seen it all in pop culture everywhere in all the movies. Tell me this. How far is this from reality? And is this where the world is going?
Well, I think, Joe, it's already started. If you think of it in really incredibly crude terms, if you are in a video game and hit, pause, you can bring up a menu and bring up a quest log. For example, if you're walking down the street, you can just stop walking for a sec, pull out your phone, pull out your task list for the day and be like, oh, that's right, I was going here next and that's how I meant to get there. You're pulling out your phone, you're essentially triggering the pause menu on a game when you do that. So I think to a certain degree, we're already there, the way we integrate our phones into our daily life. And then you start to add layers like VR, AR, all this sort of stuff, and they're pushing the boundaries with gaming. There's obviously so much headroom and it will get crazy in the future. Like we will absolutely blur, but I think it's interesting and important to note that some things have already happened, and I think a lot of them have gone by without any notice.
I love that this idea that the phone is like the game controller for your life. That's really cool. So, do you think that there is a connection, or maybe this whole idea that we actually are living in a game right now?
I've heard the theory. I understand where they're coming from, and on a theory only, standpoint, I respectfully disagree. I don't buy it myself, but that's fine. Agree to disagree. I think the opposite point of view is equally legitimate. Just for myself personally, I'm like, who would construct this? What would be the point? And I don't see it. I'm like, nope. We are witnessing random chance events constantly occurring.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So what about this idea of virtual reality? I know you kind of mentioned that, and I'm lucky to have my mind blown by your good self, and you exposed me to the virtual reality as it is in the world today, because to me virtual reality was like the 90s, where you have this incredibly massive gadget on your head and you're walking around and everything is made up of blocks. So tell me, what is virtual reality now, and how is this going to evolve into the near future?
Yeah, sure. So right now, it's pretty remarkable. As you've said, you've put it on, you understand it. It is at that point where you put it on there, the immersion is instant. They've got a ways to go with the comfort of the headset. I think when you're not thinking about the awkwardness of putting it on, or, the distance of the lens from the lenses to your eyes, and whether you normally wear glasses and take it off, that's all kind of disruptive. But the technology is still so impressive right now that it blows past those little hurdles. But as you were saying, into the future, once they work it out where it is like a standard pair of glasses, or it's, equally as light, or, way down the future, maybe you've got virtual reality contact lenses or something, you can put on and there's sort of really no interference in your daily life. That's crazy. That's exciting. That opens up a lot of ideas, especially if they start doing augmented reality, just contact lenses, and let those be augmented reality inputs. It's phenomenal to, all the sci-fi fiction books, what have you, that you've ever come across, all the possibilities there. It's really exciting. But yeah, we're absolutely maybe 6 or 7 steps down the path, to that reality. And we've taken some massive ones recently, the big one at the minute is the PlayStation 4's VR headset. It's got the highest install base of any VR headset. It looks better and plays better if you're on a PC, but because the install base of the PS4 is so large worldwide, that when they add a VR option, it's more affordable for people to get in that way. So there's more customers on PS4 PSVR than the other platforms of VR combined on PC, which is crazy. And then, this year is scheduled to come out the PlayStation 5. And then a year after that, the rumor is that you'll see the PlayStation VR 2, that next iteration. And so it'll be fascinating to see how much lighter they can make it. Can they eliminate some or all of the wires? And then what are the physical hand inputs going to be? How's that going to change? Because at the minute it's very rudimentary. It's, obviously all the directions of movement, but the finer points of your fingers. For example, you couldn't do virtual reality touch typing. The small movements of your fingers can't be recorded yet, but I'm sure it's all coming.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And so what about, speaking of controllers and how I guess we're controlling, the game, whether that's virtual reality, whether that's, any type of gaming, like what do you see the next evolution of controls, or how we're going to be controlling the game?
I've got to think it's just going to get more subtle. Finer motion tracking. Like, I think the ideal is less to no controllers. As fun as they are, like a good example, I think a parallel is the steering wheels you get for racing controllers. Like, they're a lot of fun, but the amount of legwork it is to get them out and set them up and clip them to something. And then ultimately all you're looking for is that really fine steering, which your controller can give you anyway. So it gets to the convenience, the convenience point. So as long as it's convenient, it's an advancement, even if it's, do you know what I mean? Like, even if we got the exact same tracking we got today, but without the wands. Say it was this broad, okay, you can get like left, right, up, down, like forward, backwards on the Z axis, rotation. If you can get all that without me holding anything, like if that's tracking off the unit or something itself, that becomes more convenient. It's quicker and easier to get new people into VR and really have it spread out. And the more people you get in there, the more new ideas you get and the more new experiences people will conceive of to create for the larger audience.
Yeah, and I love this idea of experiences, because it's not just about kind of entertainment, but it's really more about experiences. And then I want to come back to what you mentioned earlier when you talked about augmented reality as well. So I think this is a really exciting concept, this idea. I think we've been playing around with it with like kind of Google Glass and a few other prototypes. Like, how do you see that playing out in the future? Like, is it really gonna enter the mainstream anytime soon?
Anytime soon is the big question, because Apple are starting to work on their glasses. Presumably once Apple breaks down the social barrier wall of, I don't know if you recall, I'm guessing now, I'm stretching back in the mind, was it like maybe 2013? When was Google Glass? It was, at least 5 years ago. Yeah. And there were instances of people getting assaulted in the street for wearing the glass. People like, get your camera out of my face, like invasion of privacy, and people were getting assaulted on the street for wearing them. Apple are working on making the cool pair of Google Glass essentially now. If they can get that into the market and get the acceptance of, okay, people are walking around with cameras on their heads now and it's cool. Like, I'm not, people aren't getting assaulted by it, then reintroduce Google Glass. Obviously, you'd have to call it something else. But once Google get involved and you've got the Google Glass and you've got the daily augmented reality, the immediate benefit to me, like the first thing I want to be using is just navigation, heads up navigation. So, I'm driving the car, turn left in 50 meters or whatever, the arrows are coming up as you'd expect, the dotted lines, whatever, someone calls me, a little notification, Joe's calling, what have you, like this can all come up. I don't need to stop doing what it is I'm doing and I can just get these little suggestions. And the funny thing is, it is the gamers that will find it the easiest to slip into this reality. Like, we're already used to being consumed and in our world and, they have to present new data to us in game. So you're used to these little notifications popping up and like that is very much what you see on smartphones now that everyone's used to these notifications coming down. That came out of gaming. Like, that problem was solved in gaming before it was a problem in the real world. And so they all kind of tip and turn onto each other. So it'll be interesting to see how many other gaming elements sort of come back out and into the tech to train people.
Yeah, interesting. But what are you talking about, man? By the time that rolls in, we're going to have self-driving cars, won't we?
Well, that'll be true, but on your push bike, if you're going for a run or a bushwalk or something.
Yes, it will be also idiot alert. You look at someone and you go, don't talk to this person ever again. So I can see a lot of really interesting applications. That's what I want to get in my Google Glass or whatever.
I look forward to seeing whatever the gestures will be that people make who are on Tinder. like walking down the street and, oh, this person's a potential match. What happens if they both swipe, accept, like in their virtual? What do you see in reality when that happens?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's interesting how, it's gonna impact things like dating and stuff. What about do you see in terms of? I know that this is kind of slightly left field, but what do you see? Like we're obviously living right now in a time of pandemic, right? Which is crazy time, especially pretty much everywhere around the world. COVID-19 is hitting the streets. What lots of different, lots of impact on our society. I think on the way we live our lives. What do you see that having in terms of impact on gaming? Like how's that gonna work out on different levels?
So, do you mean with respect to how games like release dates have been pushed back as a result, this sort of stuff, or?
No, I mean, I was thinking more about I think entertainment and how we look at ourselves in terms of and like, are people gonna play more games? Are people gonna play less games? Are games gonna change because people's lifestyles are going to shift?
Sure.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, sure. So video gaming changes as rapidly as pop culture. An artist is big one year and then the next year they're forgotten about. The same is true of little trends in gaming and stuff. And certainly, there'll be songs and movies about this experience that we've all shared, for years to come. And the same will be true in the video gaming landscape. There will be games that bring it up either directly or indirectly. Some will be called, COVID-19, whatever, like it'll be all about it, but then something else will just be like lockdown, whatever, and just vaguely allude to the actual instance. But then they'll explore, those sort of games will go on to explore the concepts of mental health and maybe spiking suicide rates, a month or 2 months after a pandemic or something. Who knows? I'm making up ideas here, but people will be impacted by this in their real life. They'll have gone through the lockdown and it'll have profound unknown impacts on people, and then those people will go on to create art that others will consume even further down the line. And so it will be indirectly and sometimes directly a response to this event. But absolutely, you'll see it throughout gaming.
What is your personal take on kind of gaming and mental health? Can it help people? What is it going to look like as we kind of moving forward, into the future? There's
a lot of benefit that's coming from a lot of video games dealing with mental health. And there's a few indie games. Hellblade is the one that jumps to mind instantly. But that's someone's personal story, their journey of how they went through depression and anxiety and how they dealt with it and how they came out the other side. And there's countless indie games out there that cover this very topic. In gaming circles, it's games like these that can introduce the topic to conversation. People can discuss it and sort of evolve their thinking around it.
Yeah, that's a great point, man, because that's something that I haven't really been exposed to at all. Like kind of connecting through stories. I've only seen it from another angle through people connecting about, for example, stories around supporting each other through cancer or mental health, like through online forums. But of course, why not gaming? Because effectively that is a narrative of someone that people can relate to, like a personal story. So that makes a lot of sense. What about like more immersive experiences? Because we talked about how potentially things like virtual reality could be used for maybe relaxation or mindfulness or meditation. What's your perspective around that?
Yeah, I use VR for meditation. I've got a VR app it's got the standard options you'd expect. You can change the location, you can have sounds on and off. There's natural sounds, like if you're at the beach, waves, and if you're at a waterfall, the sound of a waterfall. So there's like sound effects, and there's really just relaxing mellow music that you can have turned on and off, natural sound on and off, total silence, but then also you can do guided meditation. So it's the standard fare of meditation, sort of the options that you have, but just being in the world, picking a spot. Like for me, there's a certain map I load up, and then there's a certain position I navigate to in the map, and that's my spot. That's the view I like. And then, I can just listen to the different guided meditations or just sit there and relax in that world. For me, it's immensely helpful. It's, it's so in a small room where you don't have a lot of room, put on the VR headset, suddenly you're in a wide open space and there's a massive waterfall. It's transformative. To a certain extent, you have to suspend your disbelief like you do when you're watching a film. You need to accept that, okay, this is put on. But if it helps you get to a meditative state, it's great. Yes, VR is great for mental health.
Yeah, exactly. Because I guess it's all about, shifting the direction of your experience and how you feel it. Like, for example, there's always been a lot of, controversy around various psychedelic drugs in the context of mental health and how they might kind of take you off the path. But right now, for example, there's a lot of conversation around how they can actually be very helpful around trauma. So I guess there's all these different things that keep on coming up, and I guess gaming is a part of that as well, right? It's part of that way of switching up your experience so that you effectively are just looking at life in a different way, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. If it can help you shape your perspective on the world, like the only place you really exist, the only place you live is between your ears. So if you can change the input, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, if you can elevate it in a certain way, and if that can change what you think of, between your ears, if it doesn't matter how the data or the idea gets there originally, if it's best explained to you from a person-to-person contact and the expression of an idea, or the representation of two characters in a video game as much as a film or a TV show, like it doesn't matter how it gets there, it's the influence that you want. And if video gaming and VR specifically helps you jump a lot of those hurdles and get to a place of acceptance or, exploring the idea space sort of consequence-free, I mean, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, that because technology is moving leaps and bounds, the boundaries for what is possible are just shifting dramatically, right? Like what was unthinkable in terms of personal access probably only a few years ago is now just available to pretty much anyone at incredibly low cost.
Yeah, so in Australia now, you could be, PlayStation 4 VR headset with a game for, I don't know, I think it's currently $750 or something. Like it's a very low price and you can be in it, this really interesting experience.
Yeah, exactly. And what about I wanted now to kind of shift it to talk a little bit about people, I guess, in different age groups. Because I don't know about you, Rob, but when I got into gaming, gaming was specifically for people of a very particular type, right? It was really teenagers or guys in their 20s. It was really geeky. It was all of that going on, right? In the 90s and early 90s as well. Now it's obviously a part of the mainstream. It's here. Yeah. You don't have to be a freak to to admit that you're playing video games. So what about kids today? How kids, use games right now? And how will that change over time, do you think?
Well, the fascinating thing for me personally, I've got a son who's 6 who I play video games with. And what blows me away is that in a very specific tasks in video games, he is head and shoulders above where I've ever been able to play. It's to watch him play a video game, I'm like, never in my wildest dreams have I been that fast at, you can see the thought process and execution. In my day, it was 2D Mario jumping on a platform. He's growing up, he's at the same age as me, and he's dealing with Fortnite is his go-to. So he's dealing with driving a 3-dimensional character, like a character in a 3-dimensional world that can, jump and dig and bust through things, shoot opponents that can come from any angle. Also, he can simultaneously switch to a build mode and start building a staircase under himself or walls around him. So he's essentially playing tag with somebody and erecting walls, barriers between him and then switching back to his gun and trying to shoot them, and he's doing it. And I'm like, the amount of data he is processing in this incredibly small window, that's phenomenal to me. So his generation, give them maybe 15 years and some computer skills, the games they'll be making would be whatever he's dreaming of today that isn't possible. Like, so when I was a kid, when I was his age, I was dreaming of the world we're living in now. So whatever world he's dreaming of is what we'll be living in 20 years. And I can't imagine how much faster it'll be, how much more complex it'll be, and how it'll just be above and beyond me.
Yeah, well, if it's going to be beyond you, man, it's definitely going to be beyond me, because that's one thing that actually put me off gaming, especially like for consoles, is when the controller evolved. I think with Xbox, where it evolved to a point where you're not only like you had those two like thumbs that would control, looking up or down, but also moving in space. And
Yes.
and like it's just completely flipped my mind, because I grew up with in the 90s with like Wolfenstein 3D, where you basically had like keyboard buttons for direction, and like space to jump, and like control or whatever it was to shoot. So like this is a totally different level of dexterity that is required, and a totally different level of like mind, I want to say mind control, not mind control, but like just how your mind responds to things. And it also makes me think that I guess like our minds would also, we are effectively, from everything that we know, about neuroscience, not that I'm an expert in neuroscience, but but we know that we are rewiring our own brains, and I think that's a fact. What do you think that is? Like what sort of applications will that have for those people who have like our kids who go through this experience and they're using those brains in a totally different way? Will this impact other things because they've changed the way of thinking through games?
Without doubt, 100%. Like, I mean, and you can see it in the workplace now. You have initiatives in the workplace that are tropes from video games that gamers see, like, oh, this little management technique, this is lifted directly from video games. Like the phrase that I hate but people love throwing around is gamification. They take the lessons learned in video games, like what is the action I can perform in a video game? What is the feedback mechanism they give me to say, hey, you've successfully completed that objective? And then my brain goes, yeah, good boy. Let's do that again. That reward center of the brain getting triggered. And so they've fleshed it all out in video games. Now they're just winding it out in the workplace. So some of that stuff seems pretty funny to me.
Isn't that a good thing, man? Because I look
at
it
definitely.
Like if you go back. Yeah, because like for example, with gamification, like I look at, with my son, again, like going through school, and they have this cool app called Reading Eggs. I don't know if you've seen it, but basically it is a gamified experience, right? Like you go through basically reading tasks that are structured in a way that is fun and interesting, and you get rewards in form of like points as eggs, and you get like all sorts of like things that are kind of unlock on you. So, but that is a great way for like education, because like for kids to go, oh cool, I got this, this like little virtual card thing. Yeah, like that's great, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the same is true for me. And like, I listen to Audible, I love audiobook. And they've got rewards in there, or achievements. I can't remember the term they use, but it's legitimately like the Xbox 360 achievement scheme. You listen to 80 hours of audiobooks, it'll pop you some trophy or achievement, whatever they call it, that's, hey, you've listened to 20 hours, good on you, shot in the arm. And, that's, you can look it up later, all your badges or whatever they call them. It's like, I see that, I acknowledge it instantly. Okay, that's out of a video game. But for someone like me, I'm like, that's cool. It just means I know exactly what I'm meant to do. Great. It's really clear, concise information. I can pick it up quick. It's like, that iconography. Yes, absolutely. Train everyone in this really simple visual language of, this is what an objective board looks like. This is a standard structure of, order of operations.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. And also because, and also the other, I guess, perspective that I remember seeing somewhere was a specific problem solving, which I think is really related to what you're talking about. But like looking at potential, like for example, and I'm completely making this example up, but looking at a potential solution for let's say how messenger RNA travels around DNA and all of that sort of stuff, but creating some of those paths using like maybe like with the gamers experience who are much better again at potentially reusing some of those patterns or figuring things out in just a different dimension because they used to thinking in a different way,
Yeah, there's some really creative thinking, and it's now I have no data to back this up other than every single gamer I've met is a problem solver. The people who, in my experience, and I've met a lot of gamers in my time, they just want to problem solve. That's it. Like, give me a challenge, give me a problem to solve. Like, that's the mindset of gamers. That's like the one defining feature. So absolutely, if you can sort of make science and scientific research and science inquiry appealing to gamers, absolutely, you're going to get a whole group of people who are super keen to solve problems in a fun way. So if they can make their research appealing, gamify it to gamers, like that's a partnership in heaven.
Cool, man. So, and do you think that then the gaming attracts certain type of people?
That's exactly what I was just saying. Like the only common factor I've seen is that they're problem solvers. That's it. It's like race, age, religion, politics, none of that matters. They're problem solvers. It's like that's the one defining trait. Humans, problem solvers, gamers.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I think that's a great angle for us to finish on. That gamers are problem solvers, and that's just something that we can take on moving forward as really something that binds it all together. Because we can figure out problems through all these different directions, right? We talked about gamification. We talked about how gaming can help science. We talked about potential impact on mental health and how they can potentially transforms people's experience. We talked about just how it's just a normal mainstream part of society instead of like being an outcast. So it's become something that's very inclusive as well. What else is there anything else that you think that has maybe surprised you about gaming, or something that is perhaps something that people never really talk about that they should know about or look into?
Well, I think if it was a message I could get out beyond the gaming sphere, I would just say that it's everything you know in every other circle exists in gaming. There's in crowds, there's out crowds, there's popular ideas, there's unpopular ideas, there's people taking stances on one side or the other. It's like every other facet of human society, all shapes and sizes. It's like everyone's welcome. No one has the right to kick you out. Just come and have some fun.
Perfect. That sounds perfect, man. Let's have some fun.
I like it. Thanks for your time, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Troy.